Welcome to the Liberating Beauty Podcast. I'm Rebecca, your host, and together we'll explore the spirit of beauty, how beauty invites new possibilities, enlivens us to inhabit our innate creativity, and connects us more deeply with ourselves and with each other. We'll have conversations and share reflections that invite you into a frequency of gentleness, truth, and mystery. I'm so glad you're here. If you find the Liberating Beauty Podcast meaningful, please consider supporting our work. To donate, follow the link in the show notes to the Together in Beauty website, home to this podcast, along with other offerings to accompany you on your journey of spiritual becoming. Please subscribe, rate, and share this podcast wherever you listen. And as always, thank you for your support and for being here with us. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Liberating Beauty Podcast. I am so glad that you're here with me this week. I've been really looking forward to this week's episode. It's on a topic that I know that I need to say so that I can hear it again for myself. You know, it's like one of these things, it's one of these lessons you just have to keep learning over and over and over and over again. It just can be completely maddening, but joyful every time that lesson penetrates just a little bit more deeply, a little bit more honestly, as we begin to free ourselves. And as I was sitting with what to call that lesson, I found myself feeling a little bit playful, which is always a good sign. And what I came up with for this week was, the rules are made up anyway. Let me tell you a little bit more about where that title came from. I think it will become self-evident as I walk us through a little bit of where I kind of bumped up against my humanness. So this was, I think it was about a week ago. I think it was the evening time. And I'd gotten this computer sometime within the last year, so it's a fairly new computer. You kind of expect it to do what it's supposed to do in the beginning. And it was just really slow, and I couldn't get some of the programs that I use all the time for work to work. So Zoom wasn't working, and I couldn't open the podcast software, and the whole thing was really slow. At some point, the computer started beeping, and I was just like, what is going on? And I am not a night person, and I found myself in bed with the computer, hunched over it, in a kind of state of panic that really felt outsized for the situation. There's so many things that are happening in the world right now of such significance, of such real dire circumstance. And so there's part of me that's going, I cannot believe I've kind of given in to something so solvable, so small in the grand scheme of things. And yet there was something that was obviously kind of getting under my skin that was not just about the computer's not working. And I found myself saying out loud, this was my husband, when I feel like the tools that I have, just the few tools that I need to do my work in the world, when I don't have them, I feel so lost. I start even questioning my legitimacy. Like, what am I doing if I can't, host a conversation or host a call? What am I doing if I can't record this podcast or send some of my writing to the readers who are providing some feedback for me? What am I doing? And how did I end up in an organization where we're too small to have an IT department? Like, what am I doing? Everything felt like it was crumbling. And it was so odd. It was the lowest I'd felt in a really long time, thinking, I don't know how it is that I can participate in the world when I've got such a weird way of being, but it works. But then when the smallest thing is off, I lose faith in my path. That's a lot. And then I thought, I'm probably not the only person that's had this thought before. Am I legitimate if I'm not playing by certain rules, or I'm not able to participate in a way that looks like what's expected of a professional or a good worker? And I just started kind of circling around what is actually underneath what makes anybody good enough to participate in the world, and what's anchoring this idea of what the world even is, or what good or meaningful participation even looks like. And so don't even exactly know how things came to pass, because I was stuck in that loop for a couple of days of like, oh gosh, I don't know if the systems that allow me to do my work are so fragile, if I'm relying on a computer and computers fail, or the internet fails and I can't do it and I can't do my work without it, how am I ever going to make it in the world as it is and as I am? And this idea that has always lived in the realm of ideas mercifully came back to me again. It's all just a game, Rebecca. I was talking to myself. So, it's all just a game. This idea of what is right and what is good and what is meaningful that we're participating in. And we need to have some shared meaning between souls as we kind of live our lives out in the world. But it is all, in some respect, made up. Laws are made up. Institutions are made up. Everything we agree to follow is written by someone at some point and for some reason. And to be clear, we need some of that. We need some social agreement that, for example, it's a red light, we're going to stop. Green light, we're going to go. Like, some of that is necessary. But in our believing somehow in our superhuman qualities, in our belief that somehow we can transcend the necessariness of our human experience, or also that we're not built for the human experience as it is, we start doubling down on our ability to be able to participate in the world, even when it's not in our service. And I noticed that in myself, a doubling down, almost a rigidity of it. I must do something. I said I would do that. I said I would send the people who are reading my book chapters a few paragraphs every week, and now it's been 4 weeks, and now I've somehow failed them. Keep in mind, these folks are just receiving my writing out of the goodness of their heart. Like, there's no contract here, nobody's waiting on it, but somehow I've created a rule in my mind that says if I don't send it up some piece of writing on X date, there's a problem. Or with the podcast, if I don't post a new episode every single Monday, then this somehow goes from being something legitimate and serious to being a pet project, which is absurd. For one thing, it just is. The podcast is just for me, a necessary expression of what I believe right now, necessary to me. And whether I post an episode on a Monday or a Friday, I'd love to think that any of you actually are tracking that, but you probably aren't. That's a rule that I made up somehow, that if it was not, if this isn't released at a certain day, then somehow it's not real anymore. And I just started getting curious about, where are all of the different places that I've made up rules about how it is that I need to be, that are no longer serving me. But some of these rules, it's like they're so subtle that it's almost impossible to see them. And so, it's a bit overwhelming, actually, to imagine all the places where these rules exist. And yet somehow, in remembering that we are the authors of these rules, that means like we still hold the pen. We still hold the pen, and we're able to say, let me just ask myself, is this rule really serving a useful purpose, a necessary purpose, a meaningful purpose, God forbid, even a joyful or a pleasurable purpose? Or is it there because I believe that I need to participate or show up in the world in a certain way in order to be legitimate? And I believe that for most of us who are moving in the world, we are aware that there are rules that we are operating by that aren't serving us anymore. And frankly, we've probably known that for a long time. And in a sense, it's not even about finding the courage to break that rule, but it's even like a smaller step than that. It's just admitting to ourselves that the rules, some of them have always been optional. That some of them have always been based on believing that whether it was beauty or goodness, wholesomeness, joyfulness was something outside of us that we need to achieve, rather than leaning back into, what if I honor the natural way that I show up in the world, that might actually come into form more slowly than I want to. That might come out, my ideas might come out in a different way than I've even become accustomed to. That moment of realizing of, oh my gosh, some of this I've made up. Some of the bars in this cell, like I've erected those. Some of this is within my, or places where I have agency to say, like the door to the cage is open. Ooh. So I invite you, as you think about your own life and places that are feeling heavy or draining, start asking yourself, are there some extra steps that you've baked into what may be a necessary process? If we go to work, we do need to get up in the morning. We probably want to brush our teeth, take a shower, whatever it might be. But what other extras have I added? And starting with the absolute most mundane. For example, I struggle knowing that if I'm going to be upstairs working and downstairs in the living room, the kids have left a mess. Something about just psychically kind of knowing that there's a mess that exists in the house makes it really hard for me to tune into this kind of beauty frequency and presence. Up until the point where I question that. And I did try that. I tried that today. I said, you know what? What if I said to myself, I am fully aware that the living room is not cleaned up to my desired standards right now. But the space that I'm in right now is exactly as I want. Could that be enough so that I don't have another step or 5 steps that are required, that I've made a requirement to be able to get into a more creative, generative space? And I actually found once I made that conscious decision that it was just fine. It was just fine. I could absolutely do the things, knowing that there'll be another time to clean up the living room or whatever it might be. So again, that's a very small, banal example, but where are there places that you notice in your life where there are rules of any size that are getting in the way of, I was about to say your creative joy, but it's even more simple, that are getting in the way of something more true that's possible, something that requires much less efforting, and something that when you've freed up all the energy that it takes to fulfill all these rules that for the most part are giving us the illusion of control, what comes through? I'm so excited lately, more and more, about what comes through in our naturalness, what comes through that feels almost indescribable and completely mundane, what comes through when there's an allowing of reality to be as it is, because reality will still be as it is whether we allow it or not, but to not fight it. So that's my invitation today and to this week, reflecting on the rules that you are participating in, knowing that all of the rules that we've agreed to, good, bad, useful, or otherwise, in some way are made up. Some of them we've collectively agreed to, but they started with an idea that this would be useful. Some of them will probably be useful for all of time, or time is as far as we could see it. And I'm bringing it down to mundane. I can't think of a situation where in a big city, not having a red light would be helpful so that all the cars aren't, crashing into each other. But most rules are not that dire. Most of them are not. They feel that dire. Honesty, it felt that dire to me the other night with my computer. If I cannot host the Zoom call I said I would, if I cannot release this podcast, if I cannot and on and on and on and on, then I am not legitimate. And something in my body gave me the sense that it was that dire, but it's not. It's really not. So I'm curious what comes up for you as you reflect on your own rules, and I'd love to hear from you. And know that we never have to be justified in changing a rule. We don't even have to say that we're changing that rule. I don't have to, I'm sharing these rules, quote unquote rules, about the podcast and the book as an example, but you don't have to say to anybody like, I am not going to clean my bathroom or my living room before I go to work. But you'll know the difference in releasing yourself from rules that are no longer serving. You'll feel a lightness when you try that. So I'll be rooting for you this week as we break these invisible rules, any rules that get in the way of us showing up just a little bit more confidently, a little bit more lightly and lovingly, because we're allowing ourselves to be. We're allowing ourselves to be, and we are inviting in liberation and beauty. Until next time, take care. Thank you for listening to the Liberating Beauty Podcast. To learn more about the podcast, my work, and how I can support you on your journey of spiritual becoming, head over to the Together in Beauty website or email me at rebecca@togetherInbeauty.com. It's an honor to accompany you on the journey. A huge thank you to our multi-talented producer and co-creative director, Mapumba Cilombo. To learn more about Mapumba's work as a producer, sound engineer, and musician, check out the show notes for a link to his website at mapumbamusic.com. And as always, many thanks to you, our listeners. None of this would be possible without the energy, encouragement, and vitality that you reflect back to us each week. Until next time, may you walk in beauty.